from a job standpoint, if you're looking for professional growth and stimulation, you've got to take those, calculated risks. And ultimately, I think that's what makes the job or the career piece interesting and fulfilling, is finding new things to try to conquer, even if you're not sure that you can do it.
Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more months than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Welcome back to the Give a Heck podcast. I'm your host, Dwight Heck. I'm here to help you live a life on purpose and not by accident. Each week, we dive deep into real stories, raw truths, and powerful conversations that challenge you to give a heck about your life and the lives of others. Before we dive in, I want to share something personal. Over the years, I've learned that the most powerful transformations often begin with a single idea and courage to protect it. Today's guest has built his life around helping others do just that. His journey is not just about the law, it's about legacy, empowerment, and the belief that every creator deserves to own their future. Richard Gearhart is someone who knows what it takes to turn an idea into something real and protected. He is an intellectual property attorney who has spent decades helping entrepreneurs, inventors, and creatives secure their patents, trademarks, and copyrights so they can build with confidence. He is a founder of Gearhart Law, an international firm that works with everyone from Shark Tank contestants to Fortune 50 companies. He has helped media icons like Larry Namer, celebrity dentist Dr. Bill Dorfman, and actors from The Sopranos protect their work and grow their businesses. But Richard is not just a lawyer. He's a storyteller, a mentor, and co-host of Passage to Profit, a nationally syndicated radio show that features real conversations with entrepreneurs and innovators. Whether you're sketching your first idea or scaling a global brand, Richard brings clarity, strategy, and heart to the journey. I would like to welcome you to the show, Richard. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Well, thank you, Dwight. That's quite the introduction, and I'm really happy to be here because I love the premise of your show and getting real and caring and talking about important things is one of my favorite things to do. So super glad to be here. And we had a great conversation before the show started. We were talking about how to pronounce my name. And I think we've got it now in between the two.
I hope so, brother, because my intent is never to offend. It's always trying to elevate and lift people up, right? And our names are so important. They
yeah,
really
absolutely. And you kind of admitted that, well, every once in a while, you find a name too difficult to pronounce. And I'm in that position every once in a while, too, on the Passage to Profit radio show. We have people from all over, and sometimes the names are not like traditional Anglo-Saxon names. They're people from different countries, different backgrounds. And even if I practice the name sometimes, I'm a little unsure that I'm pronouncing it correctly. And it's funny when you're in that mode, maybe you can relate to this, but when you're in that mode, it kind of takes away from the program, because when you're speaking to somebody and you're unsure about their name, that kind of creates a little uncertainty in the way I communicate with them too. It makes me a little bit more reserved. And so anyway,
I agree.
We took the name that hopefully it's Richard Gearhart. We're both comfortable with it. It's off the table now, and
Yes.
we can have a real conversation. So
absolutely. At the end of the day, though, you're right. It creates a reserved thought process. I'll be interviewing somebody, and if it's a first name, it's even worse because now I've got through their last name. But if their first name's hard to pronounce and I'm in the flow and all of a sudden I realize, oh my goodness, I got to say their name again and I'm unsure, but yet I can't stop the flow, I'll just skip it. I'll just say the comment. But the thing is, the power of the first name, I really want to get it right because we love hearing our own name and people may not admit it, but it's been proven, right?
Yeah.
Psychology has proven it. So, Richard, I appreciate you again coming on. One of the things that on this show that we often explore is the deeper roots of purpose. I believe that understanding our earliest recollections, those defining childhood moments or young adult moments, is key to understanding why we are where we are today. What were some of those early experiences for you or influence that shaped your life?
Well, I think one of the biggest influences was started when I was 18 months old. I was given up for adoption when I was very young. I had an older brother. He was given up for adoption too. We were sent to separate families. And, there's a lot of research and a lot of psychology about what happens to adopted children and how they end up, relating to the world. There are many who think that experience is traumatic. Being separated from your parents at an early age, it represents a very deep, fundamental loss, and so I think that since I don't know anything different other than what I experienced myself, I really can't say how that would make me different or similar to other people. But I do think that, that had an influence on me. And it turned out that later in life, I met my brother. We reunited when I was in my late 20s. And what's interesting is that we both adopted professions where the focus was on protection, right? And so he was a security trainer. He trained people how to protect themselves with self-defense moves. And I became an intellectual property lawyer, which was, protecting people's technology. And, at first glance, I wouldn't have traced that back to my origin story. But the fact that he was protecting people and I was protecting people make me think that maybe had something to do with the path that we eventually ended up taking. And so I grew up in a great family. I'm a very happy person. And I do think, though, that when I was younger, I used to watch Perry Mason. So Perry Mason is this, fictional character on TV. He was very popular. And I loved how he acted in the courtroom. He was very commanding. And, he always got the witness to break down and confess. And I just admired that power in him. And so from an early age, I wanted to be an attorney. And it turns out over the years as I went through college, I changed my mind a couple of times. I wanted to be a physician for a while. I wanted to be a business person for a while. I eventually ended up going into the business world. And then after several years of that, decided I wanted to go to law school and become a lawyer. And so that's how I ended up where I am. And as an intellectual property attorney, I have a chemistry background because I deal with technical things. And the firm has a specialty in life sciences, so protecting inventions in the medical and health industry. So we work with a wide range of inventors, people who are just starting out with their entrepreneurial projects, maybe have a new napkin holder to protect or something. But we also work with some pretty sophisticated technologies, pharmaceuticals, and so it's kind of interesting I guess, to look at sort of how my technical background and my business background and my legal background all sort of combined to put me where I am right now. So,
Wow. The interesting story about the connection with adoption. This isn't the first time I've experienced somebody that, I've run into people and had people on my show that somebody was adopted. They didn't even realize their family had given somebody up because they came after the fact. Let's say it was a broken up relationship, new kids born, and they weren't told. And they end up finding their significant other and they find commonality between them. And it's amazing to hear that. So I appreciate you sharing that story about your brother and you. One fighting for the physical defense, the other one fighting for the emotional and your protection, right? Because it
right.
does affect people emotionally if your stuff gets stolen, your intellectual property, obviously.
Yeah. And it's also, at some level protecting yourself. So, so for my brother, being a self-defense expert was also about him understanding how to protect himself. And for me, I suppose that there's some parallels there with the intellectual property too. So, but
Makes
I will,
sense.
yeah, I mean, I will say that intellectual property, after I had finished law school, I ended up going to Switzerland and I lived there for a couple of years. I went to school and got a master's in international law from the University of Geneva. And while I was there, I worked for an international law firm, Jones Day, which is a very large international law firm. And I did corporate transactions and international litigation as a young associate. Um, I wasn't really super happy with that environment and that work. I loved living overseas and I learned a lot. Um, but I ended up coming back to the United States and got a job at an intellectual property law firm and knew within like 2 weeks that I was born to do this kind of work. And so it's been a passion of mine for almost 40 years now. I've been doing intellectual property. And I love it because I'm always learning something new. There's so many different ways to practice intellectual property. You can work in a law firm. You could work in a company, which is, I also did that. I worked for a couple of large companies doing intellectual property work. You can work for the government. Um, there's ethical issues and social issues around intellectual property. You can do litigation, you can do agreements. There's just such a wide variety of things that you can do as an intellectual property attorney. And that was one of the things that I liked. You can practice it in different ways in different places, and you can focus on different topics. And, now I consider myself an entrepreneur. We started Gearhart Law. We're coming up on our 20-year anniversary. Will be in
Congratulations.
June. So knock on wood that we make it that far.
Oh, you
But
will.
but I still think of myself as an entrepreneur, and we're still actively trying to grow the firm. And we serve entrepreneurs, so we're very much involved in the entrepreneur ecosystem. And I love the new technology. I love the enthusiasm that entrepreneurs bring to their projects and their businesses. And I just think I'm the luckiest guy in the world. So,
It's all about attitude, right? It affects our altitude in life. And if you like what you're doing, it makes it so much easy. Hearing the stepping stones of you starting a law internationally and then coming back and finding within weeks that you liked intellectual law, property law, it's amazing. And the reason I point out to that is the listeners listening, it's never too late to give a heck. And even if you love what you do, but you don't necessarily like the way that it's going, maybe what you love to do can be changed. Maybe you can look at utilizing your talents in a different way to bring back the passion that got you into it in the first place. I know myself, I've had hills and valleys and gone up and down this. I've been in this business in financial education, and for 24 years I've been a financial planner. So I get it, but I've had to reinvent myself along the way because sometimes I get stuck. So what did I do? I always stay curious. I always want to learn new strategies. I always want to stay on top of it. I don't want to be that professional that stays camped in my mindset mentally and not trying to strive to be the best version of myself so I can continue to serve and educate consumers on how to give a heck about their lives so they can live that purposeful existence and not struggle to have that month or more days than there is money. So I appreciate you sharing that. That is so important.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been pretty good at sort of sticking my neck out, and maybe getting out a little bit over my shoe tips every once in a while. I think that if from a job standpoint, if you're looking for professional growth and stimulation, you've got to take those, calculated risks. And ultimately, I think that's what makes the job or the career piece interesting and fulfilling, is finding new things to try to conquer, even if you're not sure that you can do it. But it's it's that uncertainty and it's that challenge that keeps things interesting. And it doesn't have to be like a whole new job or a whole new career. It doesn't have to be like that. You don't have to put everything at risk, but maybe you can put a little piece of what you're doing at risk just to enjoy the experience of having something new and challenging. And I think that growth for me personally has been, extremely important. I'm not the same person that I was, 20 years ago when I started Gearhart Law. It was a completely different setup and organization then compared to now. And my responsibilities have changed. And it hasn't been a smooth ride. It's been, plenty of bumps and challenges along the way. There were times when I was just absolutely terrified. But I had a good support system and I had help, and we were able to kind of push through. Fortunately, I have an amazing team who stayed loyal through all the ups and downs. I'm very grateful for that. And now, these last couple of years, things have gone really, really well, and I'm glad I'm in a position to show my appreciation for their loyalty over the years. So, it's been a really interesting journey, but I think even the most difficult times are the times when you learn the most, right? And so, it's hard to say welcome those, but at least if you're going through a tough time, my feeling is that when you get out the other end, and you always get out the other end, right? And hopefully it's somewhere close where you want to be, but hopefully, when you get out the other end, you can look back and you say, well, I learned this, and I learned this. Lots of times I'll tell entrepreneurs they'll come to us and they'll tell us about their ideas and their business plans and their inventions. And lots of times they haven't even told their significant others about it, right? Lots of times we're the first ones that they talk to about it. And they say, well, should I do this? And I always say, well, I mean, it's ultimately up to you. It's a risk. We can't guarantee that it's going to work out for you, on the business side. We might be able to give some assurances on the intellectual property side. But even if it doesn't work out, you'll learn. You'll maybe learn that entrepreneurism isn't for you. Maybe you've wondered all your life, should I run my own business? Well, you might find out that that's not your path, right? Or you might find out that you love it. Even if this project doesn't work out, you'll go on to the next project, right? But you'll learn something. And even if you end up going, back to a more traditional job, you'll have gained skills that people who haven't made that trip don't have, right? And so you'll be able to bring new skills to the workplace where you're working at. So, so it's a learning experience, and I try to encourage people to look at it that way, and then find out for yourself.
Oh yeah. It can be exciting. It can be character building, dealing with clients of mine as well over the last 24 years that want to start up a business. I've had, let's say half of them that was good for them, still had a lot of things to go through and help them figure it out before they walk away from their job. And then you got half of them that they don't understand all the complexities of what an entrepreneurship will be. Lack of healthcare, you got to pay it yourself. Lack of this, lack of all these other things that a company gives you. If somebody's sick, you got to show up. You know what I mean?
That's
If you
right.
have staff, and it is such a complex thing. So I really appreciate the fact of talking to somebody that thinks that same way. We need to talk to you. Maybe you're a good fit, but the skills, if you do it and it doesn't work, that's okay. Those skills can be hopefully revamped and utilized in a different circumstance, where maybe you go back to work for somebody, but because of what you learned, it elevates you in their mind's eye, and you did get a leg up in life. Pat yourself on the back for trying. Most people don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not easy to put yourself out there, right? And for example, if you're going to do a podcast, for example, there's a lot more to doing a podcast than a lot of people think. It's not just plugging in the microphone and turning on the Zoom. You have to get the guests. You have to have the shows produced, at least to some extent. You have to have them distributed. You have to market your podcast, and then hopefully you're generating some sort of revenue from the activity. So if you want to generate revenue, you have to find advertisers, and so there's a lot to it. And so, but on the surface, it all looks so simple, right? Because it's just two people talking, right? So how hard can that be, right? But there is a lot to it, and you're putting yourself out there. If it works, great, you're golden. If it doesn't, some people might feel like a little embarrassed because it didn't work out, right? And so then you have to deal with those feelings, right? And I think most people don't try because they're scared of those feelings. And the thing that I've learned is to not be scared of those feelings and just not care, right? And if you can, don't give a heck about your fearful feelings, right?
Exactly.
And get out there and try it. And if it doesn't work, then that's fine. You can try again, or you can do something else. But I think that is trying to take those baby steps forward is what keeps your career interesting, right?
No, of course.
And not everybody's interested in that. Some people are happy, just showing up and doing their thing, and then going home at night and not worrying about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a risk in that too, right? I mean, because you never know what's going to happen to your company, and jobs that used to be secure aren't, right? So it's it's an interesting mindset. So
Well, and the mindset you have in regards to, diversify and having a podcast, those that have been listening to my show for years, that we've had these conversations, and an average guest for me, from start to what I showed you, where I draft and do all that work myself, to doing the social media side. I do have a production company. They only do so much and I do so much. I put 4 hours of my time in before this podcast will be live to the listeners and viewers, right? So is that a little bit of time or a lot? To me, it's a lot, but it's also a great investment, because I consider my podcast a classroom. I get to pick who I want. And if the amount of applications I get on a weekly basis from different services, or just the general emails, it's tough. I got to go through and I got to have that feeling here to have that person on. I do all this research, because at the end of the day, I want to learn more. I'm my podcast's biggest student and fan. And if I have a tribe, a following of people that are similar mindset, entrepreneurs, people that are in a career that want to drive to get better, they want and expect that from me, right? So I love podcasting, and your Passage to Profit podcast, which we're going to talk about since it's come up about you podcasting, is a nationally syndicated podcast that features entrepreneurs and innovators. What inspired you to start that with your wife, Elizabeth, correct? She's your
Yeah,
co-host?
she's my co-host, and
Tell me
it's a,
about it.
so well, thank you for asking. As a fellow podcaster, Passage to Profit is actually it's a radio program, and it's syndicated in 38 markets. We're international because about a month ago we added a radio station in Guam, so we can
Wow.
actually say we're an international radio show, and and so. The flagship station is WOR 710 in New York, and we work through iHeart Media, and the show is sometimes recorded in the studios in Manhattan at iHeart, and sometimes we do Zoom shows too. So we record two shows in the studios in Manhattan a month, and then we'll usually do one or two Zoom programs per month. And we have three guests on the program. We usually have a prominent entrepreneur, and then we have who's the main guest, and then we have two presenters. We have different segments during the program. We have Your New Business Journey, where we ask all of the panelists on the show a question like, well, what rule of entrepreneurship did you throw out the window to become successful? And everybody will talk about that. And then we'll interview the guest. And then after that, we'll go to another segment called AI in Business, where we ask everybody, how are you using artificial intelligence in your business? And we get a lot of different answers to that. And then we'll do a segment called Intellectual Property News, of course, because I'm an intellectual property lawyer. And then we'll interview the other two guests who are presenters, and they'll talk about their businesses. Usually they're not quite so far along in their careers as the main guest. And then the last segment is Secrets of the Entrepreneurial Mind, where everybody discloses a secret that had make them successful. So it's we pack all of that into a 54-minute program, and it airs on Sunday evenings. You can go to the passagetoprofitshow.com website to see where it airs near you. And then the show is converted into a podcast. It's available on anywhere you get your podcasts. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the whole gambit. And then we also have a YouTube channel too. So if you want to see videos of the interviews, you can do that. And the way we got involved in it is somewhat circuitous. I was a radio person when I was in college, and so I always loved radio. I had a radio show. I was manager of the radio station for a while, and then after I left college, I worked for public radio for a little bit. WCPN in Cleveland. I helped them when they were just getting started, and I volunteered there. And so radio has always sort of been a part of my background. Elizabeth and I were at a networking event at CBS in Manhattan about 7 years ago. I had a friend who had a radio show, and they did a live broadcast, and they invited us to be in the audience. We met a woman there, Kenya Gibson, who was working for CBS. She eventually left CBS, and we stayed in touch with her, and she asked Elizabeth and I if we wanted to do a show about intellectual property on WOR. And of course, we said yes. And so we've done over 300 episodes,
Wow.
once a week. And it's been amazing. I think the best thing for me has just been exactly, what you said, Dwight, and that is you get to meet a lot of really smart, accomplished, capable people, and you get the opportunity to learn from them. And so I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about business. I've learned about things that I didn't even know existed. We've been learning a lot about AI. Very interesting now, and certainly very, very relevant. Um, and so it's been just a fantastic experience. Um, so we're very fortunate. I don't really consider myself a great speaker or a great radio personality, but um, they keep us on the air and they put up with us, so it can't be too bad, right?
I think you're great, man. Honestly, I think you're very articulate. You're great at telling a story. So it just makes sense if you had that radio itch to get into podcasting. And things happen for us, not to us. You running
Yeah,
it to that person and then that person asking you if you wanted to do a show, your wife and you, that
yeah,
happened for a reason. That doesn't happen because it's just a one-off. The universe or God or whatever you believe in is looked at your life and thought, wow, this man has way too much to share, and he needs to bring people to the surface that have other things to share. So it's a win-win situation, like my podcast, right? So, and of course, by the way, I'm going to showcase your podcast. We have some overlap in listeners, but we have different. It's no different than people not wanting to share their secrets with somebody else doing the same business as them. You are different. They are both different. Different companies, different people. You attract different people. So why wouldn't I want to showcase somebody and having such an amazing podcast like our radio show turned into podcast? Because I did look it up last night and I thought, wow, what an amazing show.
well, I appreciate that, Dwight, and I just talking with you, I can understand why your podcast is so popular, because you have such an easy conversational way about you, and I feel very comfortable talking with you, and I think that's what makes for the best content is that connection between a guest and a host, and I think I think some of that is natural talent, but it's also, experience as well. And creating an environment where people feel comfortable sharing is, one of the things that, a good podcast host does.
Well, I appreciate that. That's very kind of you to say.
Well, so I do appreciate, everything that's happened so far. So,
Well, I thank you so much. And for the people listening or watching, you don't have to pull over to the side of the road if you're in a vehicle. Hope you're not watching in a vehicle, but if you're listening, remember at Give a Heck, you go onto my my website. I have complete detailed show notes for this episode, including all the links, including the link to his podcast, obviously our episode, as well as detailed chapter summaries. And I put the full unedited show notes. So I don't hide nothing. You'll be able to find it. Just go to giveaheck.com. We'll also reiterate this at the end of the episode. Sound fair? Make sure
sounds
that
good to
people can
me.
easily find you, brother. So,
And we're
oh,
certainly happy to share this podcast with our listeners as well, Dwight, because I think I think our listeners would have things in common, right? So,
of course, of course.
and I think what you're doing here is very valuable. So,
Hmm. Who knows? Maybe as a side note, I can put in an application. Maybe I'm somebody that would elevate your listenership because everything you said you ask, I do use AI and I use it very strategically, and I have for quite a while in my practice because it helps when I've got clutter to declutter. Not necessarily create but it takes my creations and makes them better. So anyway, we'll talk about that in the future, maybe.
sure, absolutely.
So
Uh,
oh, sorry, go on.
no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask a question. Go ahead. I'd rather you finish your thought.
Well, I just saw an interesting quote the other day about AI, and AI brings efficiency, but talent brings empathy. So I thought that was really well said, because in all of this AI, I mean, you can do a whole podcast with AI, but I don't think that you get the real. They haven't made it so human yet that it's really. It's as good as what I think a human being can do, but they're
Yeah.
getting pretty close. I mean, in music, a lot of different places, their AI is definitely um, is definitely something that those of us in the communication business need to be aware of, right? And there was a TV show and in the UK not too long ago where the host of the TV show revealed that he was an AI chatbot at the end of the program, and I guess the audience in the UK that was watching this flipped out because they had not expected that. There was such a reaction. It was sort of like Orson Welles in the War of the Worlds, right? Where, people, they just didn't expect this. And so anyway, it's definitely a topic for our times.
Oh, absolutely. And you can either embrace technology or you can have it squash you. Your choice, people listening or watching. You don't have to like it, but you need to understand it, especially how it affects your career, your business, your entrepreneurship. It's just like a lot of things. You either are going to be in front of the wave or you're going to be behind it getting crashed over, right? So embrace AI. We won't get too much into it, but it is very, very powerful. We could probably do an episode just on AI, right? And the different things of how it curtailed or assisted or elevated or decreased what you would have said or how you did it. You can't be you though, right? It just
Yeah.
can't. It can't give personality. And I've challenged it. I've even taken my best-selling book and put it into it just to see what it thought, because it was 5 years ago, right? It's been out as of March in 2026 for 5 years. Well, it was telling me things that I should have done different and this and this and that. And I'm looking at it like, who are you? Oh, let's see. You're a combination of a bunch of routines and data from around the world. And at the end of the day, thank you, but no thank you. I just did it to prove a point to myself. Right?
Well, Dwight, what was the title of the book?
It's right over my shoulder here. Give a
Oh,
heck. Actually, show it.
give a
I'll
heck.
show it.
Well, of
I'll
course I
show
should
it.
have known.
There you go.
I should
How
have
to live.
known. Okay.
How to live life on purpose and not by
Uh-huh.
accident. It starts I'm just going to add, because my listeners know, but you wouldn't know necessarily. My whole thing for my business is all sitting down with people and doing life skill coaching before we get to the financial numbers to understand their monsters in their lives, their personal, their money monsters, and it always starts at their origin. So I built my practice around finding out the origin, finding out the purpose. Let's heal this. Let's help work with this to heal it so that you can be the best version of yourself. Because in my 24 years, people will crash and burn within 90 days if I just deal with the numbers and don't deal with them as a person, as a human, as a relationship. So my book starts at my origin, my youngest things, just like my podcast. I want to know about your origin, Richard. I want to know how it affected you. And it works all the way up through my life, right up to me introducing my podcast, right? So I kept the Give a Heck brand that way, including my company, to really realize that our origins are important. And how many people actually ask and care about our origins? Or is it just lip service?
Yeah. I mean, that is so powerful. I think, to take the time I think if you understand somebody's origins, you really understand who they are. And I think that makes for providing a better service. And I when I'm talking with clients or prospective clients, I look for cues that reveal what they're about and what the motivations are. But to be honest, I don't really ask them. And I kind of wonder now, I'm going to try this a little bit, maybe, and ask a few more personal questions about our clients and see, because I'm very open to hearing their stories and their motivations, because I think that could help me, be a better service provider and, make for a stronger connection. And so I've already learned something here that I think is very valuable. So do you start with do you have like a particular line of questions, or is it just more of a general?
I actually, first when we sit down, I become a student of human behavior. So I don't ask questions till I look and see, just saying, Oh, thank you for because they're on Zoom calls, right? Or I'll go to their house or their business or whatever, and we'll just have a simple conversation. I'll look around their home, or if I'm on video with them, I've already hopefully done a little bit of research so I can ask them questions. Oh, what's that picture behind you? Or, oh, that's a beautiful picture, right? I really like that. I want to see if their body chemistry will change if I compliment them with sincerity and genuine. You have to be genuine. No, never be a false person, because the relationship started that way never ever works, right? Long term or even short term. So I'm
Right.
genuinely curious about them, and I'll say, what do you hope to get out of this appointment? I know you know I'm in finance, you know I do stuff, but you know how much life coaching I do. What are you looking for? Are you stuck? Right? If it's husband and wife and they're not sitting close to one another and they're on the call, I can tell, I can see chemistry, and I'll just say to them, what's going on in your lives? Why are you here? What can I help you with? And they'll say a few things. Sometimes that conversation will go on a long time. Sometimes I can break down the barrier because I'm a person that believes in wordsmithing and I understand what to say to get the best out of them. It doesn't always work. I'm not perfect, but I constantly work at and strive at that. And then I give them a goal sheets and I'll give them each one of it, just an individual. I have ones that I do for business. I have ones for personal that I've designed over the years. And I literally will get them to say, there's 15, 20 goals in there. I only want you to tell me the top three. I can help you with them all. But if we bite off too much, you're never going to succeed. So let's start. What is your things that are really bothering you? And then they'll check it off. And I've got areas, obviously, and I'll say, well, tell me why you put this down. Is there something in your past? Again, back to your origin, right?
Yeah.
Everything is our origin, and we just don't respect it enough,
Yeah.
right? The past is not indicative of our future. I tell my clients that, but it shows us signs, right?
Right.
It shows us signs that we can learn from.
Yeah, I was going to say it informs about our future, right? And I mean, I think of every day as a new day, but I also have years of experiences, right, that guide how I behave right now. So, and I think if you're working with somebody and you can understand those, and they're willing, they trust you enough to reveal those things to you, then you can even be of more help to them, right? Because you have a fuller picture of who they are, and you're able to support them in the ways that they need support.
Oh
So,
yeah, it's
yeah,
very important. They're very,
yeah,
very important. And you know what? I've been 24 years. I've been invited to birthday parties, weddings. I've been invited to special events, barbecues. Why? Because it would become more than just them being a client to me. They become important to me, and I want them to share with me. I want them to reach out and say, you know what? We can't see the forest for the trees. You're always very kind, but you're blunt with us. This is what we want to do. Here's our budget, because that's another thing I do. Not all my clients want to, but I'm very into doing specific budgeting with people so they live that purposeful life and know their inflows and outflows, and I just create that connection. And it might help your practice because you said that you don't necessarily do that level of origin, but
no, I
any
don't. I'll
any
have to get
relation
your book and find out more, right?
any relationships can help us. Well, my book talks about exactly what I do with my clients. I could talk about faith with them. If they're not faith, you know, if they're atheists, whatever. I
Yeah,
accept everybody for what they are and give them the opportunity to climb out of their despair, their valley of despair, and move forward. Did I start this from day one? I did, but it was a learning process. And guess what? I'm still learning, Richard. I still change stuff because all of a sudden I'll have to analyze why what I said during that conversation. I watched the body language change, and I asked the person if everything was okay, but they said it was fine, but there was something that was said.
hmm,
Should I address it again? Should I reach out to them and say, hey, is there something that else I can help you with? You look really disturbed. If I said anything incorrectly, I'm really sorry. Let's talk, right?
yeah,
And I'll get messages back. No, it wasn't you. It just had something we talked about just hit hard. And oh yeah, you said this and it kind of irritated. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Thank you for letting me know. Now I can make that better in the future. Right? Making yourself vulnerable in any form of business is tough for people. But guess what? people need and want you to be the real genuine person that gives, more than they want to know how much you care. They don't care how much you know, is what I tell them. I care about you.
Yeah.
So sorry, get off my soapbox. This isn't about me, but I
No,
like when people ask me questions too. I like that.
I attribute Gearhart Law's success to that level of authenticity and caring about clients, and I think that's really, really important. And also about our team, caring about our team on a human level and personal level. I think that makes all the difference. And I think people are hungry for environments where they can spend time, around people who are who have the capacity to hold the space for them, because it's not so typical, right? And I think if you can offer that in any business that you're in, at some level, in some way, I think that means that your chances of success are higher, right? Because you buy a widget, but you also buy the brand, and you buy what you feel like it can do for you, and then you buy the customer service. If it turns out it doesn't work right, or you don't know how to use it, you have support there. And part of building a business is delivering all of that in an effective way that's profitable for the business, but also beneficial for the people you're serving. So yeah, I think that but I think that digging a little deeper and finding out a little bit more about in my case, some clients, is probably, I think, makes a lot of sense. And it builds loyalty and connection and communication so that you can do a better job. If you have better communication, then you can give better support. So
absolutely, 100%. So I'm going to skip over a few things here because we don't have a lot of time left. I have so many things to ask you. I already warned you that this could happen. We might not get everything through. That's okay. The joy of this show is I can have you on for part 2, right? And I've done it. I've done it with a lot of people already. Had them on a second time. Oh yeah, you'd be surprised at a 260 episodes how many people reach out to me and I reach out to them. We become friends. Right? We have. It's just it's phenomenal. I love my podcast for connection, networking. Yeah, that's the you talked about profit in podcasting. I don't make money off it because my profit is through the connections, the networking, and then I make profit or whatever after the fact. And sometimes for me, the emotional and mental connection is the profit that I needed, right? Yeah. Because that person can they can be my co-pilot because I'm stuck somewhere and they got a specialty and they'll ask me questions. It's just, anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. It excites me having you on as a guest, right?
Well, I'm excited to be here. So
can we talk a little bit about, the basics? And this is going to go to the legal part, legal wisdom for entrepreneurs. Can you explain that? I know the differences, but many people don't. What's the differences between a patent, a trademark, and a copyright? And why should entrepreneurs listening care?
Well, for some, I mean, I think every entrepreneur should just be aware of the different types of intellectual property and, see if there's parts that could be applicable to their business. So the 3 types of intellectual property we talk about most often are patents, trademarks, and copyrights. Like you mentioned, patents protect inventions, products, ideas. They can be processes. It could be a software program. It could be any kind of technology, and so medicines, exercise equipment. Really, anything under the sun that's created by a human could potentially be patented if it's new and novel and it meets the other requirements, as set forth by the patent office, right? And there's a patent office in Canada where you're at. There's another one in the United States. They're really not that different. They look at the same kinds of things. We file patents first in the US, and then we'll file that same patent through a Canadian attorney in Canada. And we don't have to change the documents because all of that is pretty much standardized internationally. But in any case, patents protect inventions and technology. Trademarks protect brand names and product names. So Coca-Cola in the US is the famous trademark, of course, and it protects the name of the company, the Coca-Cola bottling company, but it also protects the name of their product. And what that means is that somebody can go to the store and they can look at a bottle of Coca-Cola and they know what it's going to taste like and they know where it's from. And so the Coca-Cola company has a certain reputation for quality, whether it's good or bad, or whether you like it or you don't. But having a trademark means that it's a source identifier, and people can rely on the fact that when they buy something, they know what company it's coming from, and that's really the purpose of the trademark. And you can trademark a lot of different things that people don't appreciate. I mean, most people think of it as just words or a logo. You can trademark logos, but you can also trademark smells. There are perfumes that are trademarked. Under the right circumstances, you can trademark colors. So,
Wow.
for example, in the
I didn't know
U.S., Owens Corning, which is a construction company that makes insulation for buildings, for years sold pink insulation. And they had all of these advertisements with the Pink Panther. They were able to get a trademark on the color pink that they use for their advertising because for their product, because so many people associated the pink color with the Owens Corning name that they were able to get a trademark on it. And there's a big, heavy equipment company in the U.S. called John Deere, and they make all their tractors bright green and yellow, and so they got trademarks on the bright green and yellow colors. And so if somebody sells a tractor with that bright green and yellow, they could be infringing the John Deere trademark. And you can also trademark jingles, like for example, in the U.S. we have the NBC jingle. It goes bum bum bum, right? That's trademarked. Also, I think it's Metro Goldwyn Mayer has the lion that roars at the beginning of the movies. Rawr! That's also trademarked. You can trademark the way a store looks. Apple has trademarks on the way that there's the layout and the color scheme and the materials, and that's called trade dress. You can trademark those things. So most of the trademarks are names and logos, but you can also trademark other stuff too. And then the last category of IP that we're going to talk about are copyrights, and they protect original works of expression. So movies, books, music, architecture, dance moves, all of those can be, protected with a copyright. And copyright does not protect the concept. You can, you cannot copyright the idea of a love story because it's been done, but you can copyright the words that are used to talk about the love story. So you could copyright what the writer writes. And so if somebody copies that text and uses it somewhere else, they could be guilty of copyright infringement. So those are the three areas of intellectual property. For entrepreneurs, you want to make sure that you protect what can be protected. Copyrights arise as a matter of law. You don't have to do anything. You do get copyright protection. So if somebody takes something off your website and puts it on social media without your permission, you can have them take it down. Trademarks, I think for entrepreneurs are probably the most important thing. You want to make sure that when you're starting a business, you don't take somebody else's name, right? And so you want to do a trademark search before you invest heavily in a business name or a product name to make sure that somebody else doesn't already have a trademark on that. Trademark searches aren't super expensive. Usually they're less than $1,000. But before you go to the trouble of starting a business and investing in advertising and brochures and packaging and websites, you want to make sure that, not only can you get the URL, that's important, the domain name, but you also want to make sure that somebody else doesn't already have trademark rights in that name. Because what'll happen, I'll tell you a story. A long time ago, I had a client who came to me after he purchased the business, and he spent $3 or $4 million on the business. And the previous owner was old school. He never had a website. So as soon as the guy bought the business, he put together a website and he started advertising it. And within a couple of weeks, he got a cease and desist letter from somebody in Maryland who had exactly the same name for the business. And it was the same kind of business. And he had a federal trademark registration on it, and sent him a cease and desist letter. And he said, I don't want you to use my name. Well, this was devastating to the guy's business because, the previous owner had built the business based on all the goodwill that he had generated over the years, and everybody knew his store by this name. And now he was going to have to change it because somebody else had a trademark. And the other owner never knew about it. The guy in Maryland never knew about it because the original owner didn't have a website, right? And so what happens in these situations is that you become successful or you start doing something, and somebody else's customer calls you and they think they're calling somebody in California, and they have a trademark, and then they call the owner of the other store and they say, there's a guy in New Jersey who's selling the same stuff and he's got the same name as you do. And then the guy with the trademark says, well, we can't have that. I'm losing business. And they go and they contact the person and send them a cease and desist letter, and you get into litigation, right? Or you have to change your name. So if the person starting the business just checks before they you start using the name and make sure that there aren't going to be any issues, you can avoid all of that trouble. So for for less than $1,000, you can get a trademark search and you don't have to worry about it again, right? So I think for entrepreneurs, that's the biggest message that I can make is when you're selecting your business name, make sure you're not going to run into any problems, or be willing to change it if a problem does come up. But who wants to do that, right? So
Nobody. That's why I went through everything you talked about. My logo, name are trademarked. It took 3 years though, because my last name is considered slang and slander, or like not slander, but people use it as a swear word. So,
Oh yeah.
and I applied for it in 2020. So that was the pandemic years. I never got official paperwork for 3 years because I had my lawyer here. He's been a friend of mine since the 80s. He does trademark stuff in Canada. He specializes in it. Plus he does some corporate law stuff. And we went through all the stuff. I had the website URL already. I'd gone through all this stuff. He says, you did all that already? I said, yeah. Now he says, what's your logo? So my logo is trademarked, and underneath it says how to live life on purpose and not by accident, right? It says give a heck, how to live life on purpose, not by accident, and then my logo. So that it took 3 years to get that trademarked, but that's mine. The name's mine, the logo's mine. In Canada, I haven't done it yet in the US because I don't do a lot of business. I'll speak down in the US. I'll get invited to do different things. The odd time I get people wanting around the world that want to utilize my services, and I'll coach them, because everything I do for people here, I do for people outside of Canada. I just can't help them with the final end result of the products and services that involve with their. But sometimes the most important thing they needed was that back to that origin and holistic coaching, right? So I do appreciate you talking about the trademark, and it makes me smile because I've done it as an entrepreneur, right?
Well, you made a right choice, and it's money well spent. the other part of it, and people don't appreciate it, it's not just a matter of litigation and finding it out in court. Because if you have a trademark, Dwight, and somebody else wants just independently decides that they want to use your name, they go to their trademark lawyer, and their trademark lawyer does a search, and he says, "Oh, I'm sorry, you can't use that name. Dwight's already got it." And the guy says, "Oh, darn. Well, I guess I'll have to think of something else." And so, even though you never went to court to fight over it or send anybody a nasty letter, just having it registered prevents other people from also using that name, right? And so that's where the protection really comes in. You'll never know a person came and asked that attorney for that search and searched your name. You'll never know it. But I know it because I do these searches all the time, and I find names. My clients want to use a name and it's already taken, and I have to tell them, no, you have to change your name, right? But the owner of that trademark never knows that we had that conversation. So it doesn't just protect you if somebody blatantly steals it. It protects you because other people will avoid it. And there's no way to measure that. But I can tell you, we tell people to choose a different name all the time if that name is already taken. So
Yeah, that's good though. This conversation is coming up. Those listening, if you have a business, please take it serious. It is something that is very serious, and I'm glad that Richard talked about some of the problems and issues and challenges that can come up. Do you have time for a couple more questions before we wrap up?
sure. Yeah.
Okay, that'd be great because and then we won't take too much more time. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you about in regards to empowerment through action, right? A lot of people listening have ideas but are stuck in that fear and uncertainty. What would you say someone who is on the fence about pursuing their idea? What would you talk to them about when they come to you? How does your conversation start?
Well, I mean, I go back to what I said before that whatever you do, I mean, ultimately you have to choose what you want to do. But don't worry so much about the results. Obviously, if you're investing in a new business, it's a big time and commitment. But think of it in terms of education, and it may work out. I mean, I left a corporate job. My wife suggested that I start my own practice, and it turned out to be the best, professional decision I ever made in my life. But it may not work out, and so you have to be ready for that. Um, I think where people sort of get challenged is that they think it's going to be simple. And, people will come and say, I've got this $1 million idea. And I'll say, well, it's a great idea, but there's a lot more to it than that. And you need to, um, you need to educate yourself about the entrepreneurial process. And if you're not an experienced entrepreneur, I think it helps to be open to receiving coaching from other people who have been down this road. And so one of the things that we try to do is if like say there's somebody who has an invention in the fitness industry, well, we'll try to find a client who also has an invention in the fitness industry and can talk with them about, well, what is it like to build a business in the fitness industry? What are the things that you have to do, and what are the commitments like? And it helps if you have a lot of commitment to the process, passionate about your idea, and willing to stick with it long enough to see it work out. And then there's another part of it too, which is having the financial means to pursue it, right? I've had people come to me and they say, well, I've got $10,000 left in my retirement savings account, and I want to put it into this business. And I say, well, are you really sure you want to do that? Because, that's, I mean, I appreciate you're an adult and you get to make the decisions that you want to make. But you may need more money than that. right? And you may need, are you willing to risk, so much of your future, on this project? So, those are all considerations. But at the end of the day, I really feel that everybody's an adult. And I don't try, I tell people, I can't predict whether your idea is going to be successful. I walk into a Walmart or a department store, and a lot of the stuff that they have there, I would never buy. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's not my taste or I don't need it. But somebody's buying it, right? So otherwise, it wouldn't be in the store. They'd get rid of it, right? They don't keep stuff around that doesn't sell. So, one person's opinion on a product is not going to make or break your, whether or not you can be successful.
It's back to that
So,
education. And that
what's
was
that?
I said, it's back to that word education that you mentioned. And that's what I want everybody to hear. It even
Yeah,
trails back to knowing whether or not you can have the URL, whether or not you can trademark, you know what I mean? Education. Put
yeah,
some effort in, people. You have that passion and drive to even want to do it. Don't stop there. Get
yeah.
somebody to help you, like Richard, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I started, there was a school I went to, Action Business Coaching. They're not around anymore, but they had this basic, 8-week program. And, week one was they're talking about marketing. And then week two, they're talking about financing. And then week three, they're talking about sales. And week four, they're talking about HR. And I learned a lot, even though I'd been an attorney for 15 years before that, and I'd worked in a big corporation. Uh, there was a lot of stuff that I just needed to know about running the basics about running a business, and it helped a lot. And so I think, just what you said, Dwight, education, it makes all the difference.
Oh, it does. It does. It works. It works with starting the business. And then when you are helping people, educating them, they're educating you by sharing, for me, their origin and their difficulties. They're educating me so that I can educate them. Education is a two-way street. It works, right? It creates a very solid relationship, in my opinion, to understand and educate myself about them. They educate themselves about me. And then if they're looking at a business and it's a client that I'm sitting down with, because I've had lots of them, then they're educating me about their idea, and I'm educating them about the things that they have to think about, from the URL to trademarks to, doing some research on whether or not, maybe going out for us, for you, it's zip codes, for us, postal codes. You can do research. There's lots of companies that you can get data and say, here's my XYZ widget, and here's what it's going to do. What are the people's income around this area, and what are your chances that they have this XYZ widget need, right? So education.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah,
That's great.
absolutely.
Makes me
Um,
excited to just talk about it.
yeah, and I think if you're selling a product or a service, that's new or a little different, you need to get some feedback from, some objective feedback about it. From, you can ask your friends, but your friends are going to be nice, and your family probably is. They're either going to be very discouraging or they're going to tell you it's great. But I think you need some, effective feedback, and you need to be ready to change course. If what you're selling isn't working, then, you may need to take another approach. And so, you don't get too stuck on what you're doing. You may need to pivot. So, um,
Exactly. But at the end of the day, it's better to know than always wonder. You don't want to be that person. And I don't care what age you are, you can become an entrepreneur. I've got people in their 60s. I've had people talk to me in their 70s. At the end of the day, don't die with your music inside, the music of what you can apply, not necessarily listening music, but you don't want to be that person going, oh, I regret taking that. You don't want to be on your deathbed, last breath, going, geez, why didn't I just take a shot? Right? Why
right.
didn't I just look out for some mentorship, some coaching, somebody that can be impartial
Yeah.
initially, and then can grow into a relationship with me and tell me those tough truths because they care about me.
Yeah. I think, that's amazing advice. And I feel the same way, is that if you have the urge to go out, and I mean, a lot of people find express themselves through their work. I mean, I certainly do. So that's part of how I express myself as a person, is what do I create in the workplace, as part of our society. And so if you have an urge to do something like that, it would be a shame if you never tried it, right? Because I do think they say at the end that you regret the things that you didn't do more than the things that you did. And fortunately, I'm not at that point yet.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness. I don't want us. I don't
goodness,
want this to be the
knock on
last
wood.
time somebody talks to you.
But I mean, it is, it's something to think about, and if it is important to you, then I think it's you owe it to yourself. So
To give a heck.
to
Absolutely.
give it a heck, yeah.
So, Richard, this is going to be our final guest question because I'm going to have you on. There were so many other things that I'm intrigued to ask you. So we'll have to plan something in the next short while, the next, maybe 60, 90 days, and get you back on and just have a continuing conversation if you're interested.
Sure.
And so, Richard, if you had to leave our listeners, pardon me, with one last message, something that proves it is always worth to give a heck about your life and never give up, what would that be?
I would say just never give up. I mean, it's I would say that I can't say how many times I thought things weren't going to work out, but I kept going, and it turned out that they did. And I think, persistence and tenacity count for so much. And so if you can hang in there, and sometimes you need support, but if you can hang in there, just hang in there and keep going. So I think that more than anything else has defined my path in life, was just a willingness to not give up and to never give up. So.
That's awesome. And I like that one word, willing. I always tell people that sit with me, I can do all the wondrous works with your numbers or your planning, from living today to dying with dignity. But what I can't do is make you the willing. Are you the willing? Are you wanting to get help? And and I say it that way. I say it kind. Like if you're not in the right headspace right now because you're going through something traumatic, you've lost somebody in a trauma, they passed away, or you've got divorced and stuff. Let's sit in this. Let's sit in your emotions and in your feelings. Let's work through this so that you can become the willing to escape where you're currently at. I'd hate to take advantage of you, right? And it's so easy to do that. Yeah. As a professional, right? So I appreciate that. That willing thing is so important. So where's the best way people can reach you? And of course, I'll make sure this is in our show notes.
Sure. Well, if you're interested in intellectual property, you can reach out to us at gearhartlaw.com. That's spelled GearhartLaw.com. Or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Love to hear from you there. It's just Richard Gearhart, Esquire. And of course, there's the Passage to Profit radio show. You can catch us on stations across the country. Go to our website to find one near you, or you can catch our podcast too. It's the Passage to Profit show with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart.
Yeah, and the website's the same. I've got it written down here, passage to profitshow.com. Right? Yeah. So I will make sure that's all in the show notes. If anything that you've listened to, people watching or listening, has intrigued you, do yourself a favor. Go to giveaheck.com. Go to the Top Hit Podcast. You'll see a picture of Richard. You'll see a breakdown of the podcast, all the links. You will see again the chapter summaries in case there's something you don't want to have to navigate through the whole show and you just want to go to a specific topic we discussed. It's all there for your convenience. And do yourself that favor. Go check it out. Anything you'd like to say to wrap up the show before I wrap up the show?
Sure. I mean, Dwight, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much to you and your audience. I've enjoyed this tremendously, and I've learned a lot. I'm going to be maybe asking a few personal questions, for some of my clients now going forward, and looking ways to to connect with them on a different level. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. So thank you again. So whether you're just starting out or scaling your business, Richard's platforms are packed with resources to help you protect your vision and move forward with confidence. But before we close, remember your ideas are valid. Your instincts are powerful. Your journey is worth protecting. Whether you're just starting out or scaling something big, give a heck. Give it boldly, because when you honor your creativity and protect your vision, you are not just building a business, you are building a legacy. This has been Richard Gearhart, a voice of clarity, a defender of innovation, and a trusted guide for anyone ready to turn inspiration into impact. If this conversation moved you, share it with somebody who is sitting on a great idea. Let them know it's never too late to start, and it's always worth protecting what you build. Subscribe to the podcast and hit subscribe on YouTube as well. Leave a review or rating in your favorite app. Like, comment, share on social media. Every review and share helps amplify voices like Richard's, and reminds others that their ideas are worth fighting for. Until next time, keep giving a heck about your life. And remember, no matter what stage you are in life, it's never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.